So yeah,
right.
we do have one question. Hi, when will Vuex 4 be completely
That's
released? Good question. Soon, I am hoping.
Soon. Yeah.
Very
Fingers
soon.
crossed.
Very soon. We don't have any technical issue right now. It's more of a preparation phase. So like we need to have new documentations and those have to be deployed. So we have to like new domains and such. So it's more of a small tweak. So I think it's safe to say that you can use current Vuex 4 beta with Vue 3 and you should be good. There will be no breaking changes. And hopefully, I don't think there will be any changes. So just go ahead and use Vuex 4. Yeah. Hi, how is Vuex ORM evolving in Vue 0? Thank you for asking Vuex ORM. Actually, this is, I haven't announced this publicly, but currently we are developing Vuex ORM next. And the interesting part is Vuex ORM is Vue agnostic. It's plugins for Vuex. So it really doesn't matter the Vue version. So, and I've tested and it works with Vuex 4. So it means the current Vuex ORM will work both on Vue 2 and Vue 3, depending on whether you're using with Vuex 4 or Vuex 3 or Vuex 4. So I think Vuex ORM wouldn't evolve because of Vue 3. Maybe it will change when we adapt to Vuex 5. Maybe internal architecture could be a little bit different, but hopefully Vuex ORM is like, yeah, it has not much to do with Vue itself, really.
Got it. Good answer.
Vuex ORM also be some. This is really interesting to see so many questions that Vuex ORM is kind of, I have a fun, you know, rather than Vuex. Like I'm getting Vuex ORM questions. Great. Will Vuex ORM also be smaller? Well, yes, I think so. But the main concept of Vuex ORM, because it's object relational map array, so by nature, it's like feature-rich library. It should support like lots of features, like lots of queries, lots of relationships and such. So I think Vuex ORM will not be focusing so much on bundle size. I mean, of course, we're striving to make it smaller as possible, but the size is not like our main purpose. Like it's more like giving so many features that can be useful. But I'm trying not to become like Lodash, like this too huge and it's very useful, but you can't use it. Because interesting about Lodash is in Vuex ORM, we have this feature called order by. So JavaScript array has lots of good features like map, filter, and reduce, but things like order by you have to implement yourself. And Lodash already has it. And he has really good API and really good functionality. But once you install Lodash into your library, it just brings like 20 kilobytes extra bundle because Lodash is sharing lots of the code. So even if you only pull order by function, it's going to pull like lots of basic functions. So that's kind of, this is off topic, but it's something this JavaScript community has to think about, I think, because we have this good Lodash library, but everybody is recreating those functions, right? Because even in Vue 3, we have lots of utility functions like isArray and its symbol, or maybe map for object. And those things are like, if we could just use Lodash, and if we can just reduce the size of bundle, it could be much easier, but currently we can't. So that's something really struggling. Okay, sorry for the side talk. So next one is, can Vuex persistent state plugin be integrated into the actual Vuex? Or is there any other way to persist state? I'm not following the question here as much. What do you mean by the actual Vuex? Because I think Vuex persistent state is programming for Vuex, so it should work with Vuex, right? If you can elaborate a bit more, I think I can answer that. So the next one is, how about error? Vuex do not mutate Vuex store state outside of mutation handler. Good point. Good point. This is something that we are still thinking what to do with actions. So the limitation with the current Vuex 3 and Vuex 4, that only mutation can mutate the state. This is not because of like technical limitation, right? It's more like opinionated Flux architecture kind of limitation. And it kind of helps to always, don't directly mutate the state outside of mutation. It's kind of best practice, but we're also seeing that it's not always true for every application, right? Sometimes it's like too much, but we are planning to have option, like strict option that says you can't mutate state outside of action. But we're thinking that it should be optional. So if you want to mutate state directly, that's okay too, but we can have option that restrict, that errors out those mutation outside of the action. So basically action in Vuex5 is action plus mutation with in Vuex3 or Vuex4. So I think we can have that option, but it's going to be optional, I think. We're not still sure about this one. Okay, next is Govert, I think. Kia, can you provide insight into why the left function is called left when there's already this refs currently? Good question. I think Ben has a better answer for this one. I think it's
this is tricky.
Yeah, it's short term for reference, right?
Yep, that's right. Yeah, so this is kind of a tricky one. There's been a lot of discussion around this. But basically, from what I understand, they actually, I think at the end, they still collapse, I think, into the same, like when you're referring to them programmatically, Kia, I think they actually do end up pointing similarly to the same thing. We're still, this probably could honestly go sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. I imagine this may be something we improve on. I know that this is still kind of a small discussion point.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't behind the original design decision to do that. So it's possible it's also named ref though, because I think JavaScript wise, as we know, like providing references. So I think it's trying to keep that kind of mentality so people don't have to learn the same concept twice, but it's true that it is a little confusing considering we have this $ refs and then template refs. So true. It's kind of tricky. So maybe we can provide like an alias for people going forward so that it's like, while maybe in the core library we call it the same thing, maybe at the surface level API we can change it up for people who want to distinguish between the two.
I think it's less confusing for people who joining from Vue 3, because when you use left with refs, it kind of makes sense, right? You pass left to template lefts, and you get back the template into the left. But I think it's confusing for people coming from Vue 2 because you already have this left. But so when using ref, you immediately think of like template left, right?
Yep.
But yeah, this is tricky one.
Yeah, the SEO.
Good question though.
Yeah, we will. No, it's all good. We'll keep it in mind and keep those discussions going. Question.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great. It's kind of a bit. Everybody have to join here and stop watching the stage, right? So.
Yeah, I imagine some people have the tab open, but if people don't have questions,
that's a good idea. Yeah, you can open multiple tabs. Great. And from Mike, no questions.
Yeah,
just
so
excited about the changes. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're excited too. Yeah.
Good.
Steven, thanks. So it will be encouraged to directly mutate the state and use only actions instead. Is there a naming convention for actions that are asynchronous versus mutation-like actions? No, we don't have any conventions, especially in composition API. There's no actions. So
you mean no mutations?
No mutations or no actions or no state, right? You just use ref or just plain function. So there's no convention or anything, but you can of course always, but maybe you could just mark async front of the function, the plain JavaScript syntax. that could be, maybe that's that you can do. Yeah.
And to answer Steven's question, as the team develops more like sort of conventions and best practices, we will probably add them to like the style guide that we do for those that are looking for opinionated. But one of Vue's core tenets is that we want to give people the opportunity to define their own structures and those things. So, but we will definitely keep you posted if we come up with some conventions that we think would help people maintain better architecture.
Yeah, especially I think we are gonna have some challenges between this asynchronous action versus mutation when it comes to like DevTool support. And with new DevTool, currently we have this timeline view. So
I'm so excited for that.
Yeah. So with this timeline view, async actions should work really well because you can see exactly when it happens, right? So you can just click them, and hopefully we can time travel that one too, and we can have like this next level time travel.
Yes.
But thanks to this Vuex5, it's becoming very thin. So if there's a lot of feedback that people really want some mutation, we can always create plugin that adds mutation function. So that's maybe one thing we could think about. Yeah. If this action only having action is maybe confusing or might introduce something that we're not aware right now, maybe that's something we could do.
Yeah, building in an escape hatch may be nice, but I think most people are in agreement that removing mutations is mostly for the better.
Yeah. It's just, I'm always like writing lots of logic fast in mutation, but sooner or later it becomes like, oh, I have to call API before doing this. So I have to move that around to actions. And finally, all mutations are like just setters, right? So it's like, why am I writing this? It's just state.name equal name, state.age equal age. I'm just copying all over the place, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Looks like the next question is about contributing to Vuex5. Do we have an RFC yet?
No, it's not open yet. So RFC is coming out after Vuex4 official release. So it should be soon. But why we wait is because we would like to gather more feedback on Vue3's reactivity system and composition API from the community. So maybe we can polish a little bit more about Vuex5 idea just before it goes out. So that's the reason why we're waiting right now. Yeah. But it should be soon, and definitely I think RFC is going to be open this year.
Yeah, we'll definitely be like tweeting out and sharing it when the RFC is open for feedback.
Nice. I'm so thankful mutations removed. It makes it simpler. Yeah, I think so too. Is it likely that Vuex5 will be in Nuxt 3? Okay, to be honest, I haven't talked to Sebastian yet about this Vuex5, so I don't think he's aware of Vuex5 yet. But as always, they're pretty quick on doing integration and catching up with the latest version. So
yeah.
And also Vuex5 is much simpler in terms of server-side rendering, because next with Vuex, the hardest part is handling this server-side rendering part, right? So in the backend, with Vuex3 and Vuex4, Next is doing this register module and preserve state and lots of complex stuff. And most of that things should go away in Vuex5. So the integration speed with Vuex5 integrating Vuex5 to Nuxt 3 should be faster than the before. So yeah.
I imagine there'll be like a config that's like tells you which Vuex you want at the bare minimum.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we don't want to bump Nuxt version basing on Vuex. So
yeah, no, gosh, no. We're not pulling an Angular. No.
Okay, so if I am to commit to Vue 3 for project, should I use Vuex4 or wait for 5? Will it be easy to migrate? Well, as I shown this slide, Vuex5 is like almost breaking everything, I'm afraid to say. but the core concept is the same. The Vuex will always be a global state management tool. So the question is, do you need global state management in your app? And if yes, then I will say, yeah, let's use Vuex4 and keep it simple, I guess. Just use it for the global state management. And if your Vuex4 stores are simple enough, then I think migrating to Vuex5 would be easy. I think. But you have to tweak along a lot though. You have to move mutation logic into actions and such.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't say it's going to be like super easy, but I also wouldn't say it's going to be really hard to do it. So yeah,
I know
and
that.
also
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if you want to prepare your stuff for migration, generally just focus more on like calling actions in your application rather than calling mutations. That'll simplify a lot of the migration. Because if you're calling mutations directly in components, then you're going to have a trickier time. So that would be one way to get ahead of it.
That's a good one. Yes. And yeah, happy to see mutations go. We have automatic getters in Vuex5 or equivalent. Automatic getters, you mean like if you define state, you get the pair of getters? I think I saw this issue on Vuex GitHub too, but I would like to confirm what this automatic getters really mean here. Okay, so the next one is, I'm very excited about Vuex5, many great improvements, especially the merger of actions and mutations. What change are you personally most excited about? Well, my most excited part was that it became thin and simple, yet it supports more things, right? I think the biggest one is store composition idea. Like, so removing modules, and instead of having nested modules, we use a store composition. And because mutation and actions are pretty nice, but if we want, we can do that in Vuex4 too, right? It's just removing mutations. But store composition part was a little bit challenging because this is also because of the server-side rendering and also the global state issue, right? You can't just import store into another store because that will going to break server-side rendering, but you can't create new instance for the store, new instance of the store inside another store because it's going to be a different store, right? You have to keep the global one too. So by introducing this vuex.store method approach, it kind of solves both problem using inside Vue component and handling all the server-side rendering, but you can do the same inside Vuex store and compose store whatever the way you want. And it's type safe because current Vuex 3, if you have nested modules, the dynamic module can never be typed, right? But with store module, by store composition, you can type those as well. And so I think store composition was the most biggest improvements we had in this one. And by the way, thankful to Eduardo creating Pinia. So Eduardo is also is a maintainer of Vue Louder, and he created this library called Pinia. And it has pretty similar idea to Vuex5. So Vuex5 was very inspired by Pinia. So yeah, that was good library. Okay, I probably not use mutations at all in Vuex4 then. Thanks. Yeah, great. You have to use mutation because otherwise Vuex is going to complain that you cannot mutate the state outside of mutations, but keep mutations just simple and always call actions from Vue component, then you should be good. Yeah. And next, in Vuex5, when will the stores, the new modules, be initialized if composed and injected to the root via Vuex and not imported directly into the components? Will they be initialized only when the component which uses them is created? Do we benefit from not initializing and use stores you mentioned then? Well, in this case, store will be initialized at the time you install the Vuex to the root. But I don't see the point of doing this. You should only use the store when you really need it. So you could just first create Vuex store and register all the store and pass Vuex instance to the component. You can do that, but I don't see point why you would want to do that. So yeah, do you have any specific use case you might want to do that? And that was from Ben. Okay. Next, no, you mentioned you have to do that if you want to support server-side rendering. Oh, no. Okay, the only thing you have to do is install Vuex instance. And Vuex instance is empty container, so there's no store attached to the Vuex. The store is not attached to the Vuex instance. The store instance is only created when you actually use the store. So when you actually call vuex.store method inside component, only then store gets instantiated. So when you're installing Vuex, there's no store attached. It's just a simple plain object installed. Okay, the stores you talk about, are they always global? Yes, store is always global because that's the point of Vuex. Vuex is a global state management. If you don't need global state, you should always use Vue local state. Taking this slide as an example, will this complete in IDE like WebStorm? Okay, let's see that one. Will this complete in? Yes, it does. It does. This is actually not new to Vuex. Yes, that this greeter is typed completely. And this is not, how to say, this is not new in Vuex, but Vuex5 type system is pretty similar to Vue Options API type system. So pretty much everything is typed automatically. Only concern you have, only the thing you have to be careful is when you have circular reference. It's same for Vue Options API, but if two functions reference each other, then you have to annotate that function with a type. And also, if you want to have a circular reference with store composition, let's say the greeter store uses counter store, but counter store also uses greeter store. Actually, you can do this. We support that too, but you have to be careful when you're calling it. You can use those stores inside getters and actions, but not outside. So when you're using Options API store, there wouldn't be any problem. But when you're using composition store, it could be a problem because you can always import them and use it before function call. So that's the only thing you have to worry about. But as a best practice, you shouldn't have this circular reference at the first place. So I don't think it's going to be a huge problem. But when it comes to typings, the circular reference is the only edge case I think we have. Okay, next one is taking that same slide as an example, just to be sure. Shouldn't the right say const counter store instead of const greeter store? Let me see again. Const greeter. Oh yes, oh yes. It should be const counter store. Yeah, the greeter store is typo. My bad. Also, currently I'm using this all lowercase camel case style component store name, but maybe it should be all Pascal case like Vue component, right? Instead of having small letter greeter store, it should be like capital G greeter store, maybe. Because when you use when you pass that to vuex.store, you get the store instance. So maybe it could be nicer that way. I don't know. This is something we have to work on when we write up like final RFC. Nice. So are you guys having fun with all this Vuejs.amsterdam talk? Okay, do I understand correctly that when you have the counter store and use it in multiple components, they access the same data? Yes, exactly. They all access the same state. So if you change the counter state in component A, and if component B is using the same store, then the value there also changes. Yes. Nice. I've been waiting for my life so much. Huh? Wait. Oh, it just popped up. I've been waiting for this for a long time. Great. VX5 is going to make my life so much easier. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for such a kind word. I hope so. I hope VX5 is going to be much better, and it's going to be much flexible, extensible, and I hope more plugins come out, and because now Vuex5 is more unified with Vue component and Vue composition API. And interesting is in Vuex5, if you are using composition function, you can use any composition function inside Vuex store. So, well, you have to be careful that that composition function is not containing any Vue component related stuff like on mounted or on unmounted. But other than that, any composition function can be used inside Vuex store too. So we did also get lots of issues where people struggling saying that first they write some logic into Vue, and after they find out it has to be global, it has to be shared across multiple components, so they want to move that logic into Vuex. But current Vuex is so much different than Vue component. They're having tough time, migrating those logics, right? But now we have almost identical API. You can just move those, copy and paste that logic into Vuex store, and it should work. So I think in that world, you can always switch back and forth store and component. And that could be pretty handy too, I think. Nice. Okay, the next is, my team is small part of company using Vue instead of React. Great. Your company, your team is wonderful. Maybe I can convince them with some of upcoming changes. Haha. Oh yeah, you could. Well, I'm not saying React is a bad library or anything, but yeah, Vue is pretty nice too. So, but also having one company using both React and Vue is also good. Like you can always compare pros and cons, right? Because React is also really good for React purpose stuff, and Vue is good for like Vue stuff. So that's really nice. Hey, is VXORM going to have parallel released VX4 and 5 to keep the compatibility? Yeah, this is something I'm also thinking, like, how should we version VXORM, right? So I'm guessing VXORM version 1 is going to support both VX3 and 4. And I think VXORM version 2 is going to support VXORM 5. But it depends on how long we support VX4, but at the moment, I'm thinking it should have the same support length as a Vue 2, which is 18 months support, right? So Vue 2 will be supported 18 months after Vue 3 is released. So I think VX4 has to be supported until then. So VXORM, as a maintainer of Vuex, I'm also thinking VXORM should support VX4. As long as VX4 is there, we should be supporting VX4. Yes. Yeah, minimizing the difference is going to be great for new developer onboarding time too. Oh yeah, I think so too. Currently on the Twitter, and also I sometimes do some workshop in Japanese like community event, and people get really confused when we introduce Vuex. And I think that's the biggest part was because it's like built with Flux idea, right? Because when at the time Vuex came out, it was like huge sensation of Flux. And even though no one had any idea what Flux really is, like there was lots of Flux idea came out, and Redux came out, and Vuex obviously came out. And Vuex 1 was more similar to Redux, right? It was at least it was much similar than VX4 today. And from VX2, we introduced modules, and actions was built into the modules. So Vuex is now really different from Redux, but still it's like continuing to have this Flux idea. And I think in general, Flux was like really hard for newcomers, especially. And still then, we are not so sure what realist Flux is, right? So in my opinion, in Vuex 5, I really want to say that Vuex 5 is for global state management, because Flux is just a tool, right? Flux is not the purpose we want to build. We're not trying to build Flux application. We're trying to build global state management tool, and Flux is only one way of doing it. So I think I'm going to emphasize more about this global state management concept in Vuex 5. Although it still has some that flags diagram kind of thing, state and getters and actions and this one direction data flow. But I think we should be focusing more on like global state management. Yeah, almost same with my team, but the company mainly uses Magneto, and that's a big change. Wow, interesting. So you're planning to work together with guys from either Vue Style Guide or ESLint on some standards for Vuex? Yeah, pretty much. I think for the ESLint part, probably it should be almost same as Vue component because the syntax itself is pretty much the same. But the style guide is, yeah, we should be thinking about it. How like wild we want to go, right? But again, VX5 is more similar to Vue component. So I think it should be very similar. You can just follow Vue style guide and do the same for Vuex. And for the folder structures and such, I think we have to think about it. Like, what's the best way to keep things separately? But also, I don't believe we have a style guide for composition API yet. So when that comes out, I think VX5 should follow that one too. Yeah, I don't think we have composition API style yet. Yeah. Okay, from Mike. I feel sometimes Vue is still a little locked down upon. When I walked in Japan, it felt like a community was bigger. Oh, really? Locked down upon, you mean the community is like, what do you mean by locked down upon? Like a small brother of React. Oh, yeah. Well, I think that's, well, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but I think it's true though, because first React came out and React brought this component-based view. I mean, not view, but that view layer, right? View layer JavaScript framework. And clearly Vue is also share the almost same concept. So I think this image will always be there, right? There will be React and there will be Vue. But yeah, well, I think it's a good thing though, because most of like huge libraries or like anything, it's always have this competitors, like three competitors, right? For example, I'm not sure in US or other country, but in Japan, we have this convenience store, and major convenience store is run by three companies, and all the telecommunication company, the three big one is owning. And for the JavaScript framework, I think currently is React, Vue, and Angular. And I think React is moving the fastest, right? They introduce new things, and they move so fast. And Vue is more like stable, but it's a little bit more aggressive than Angular. And Angular is like more stable, right? It has whole package in it. And I'm working at the Global Brain, the venture capital, so I see lots of startup. I interview lots of startup, and I hear them what they use for their technology, and I clearly see most of the time front end. I think I don't have like exact number, but 60-70% they're using React, and other one is mostly using Vue, and sometimes, and I don't see Angular so much these days, and sometimes they don't even use any framework. So I think that's the percentage right now. And I think the same for like global too. Hey, I see several big official libraries like Vue Router and Vuex and using Lolap. Can you share the benefits of using instead of Webpack for Vue libraries purpose? Oh, okay, this is a good question. Okay, so Lolap, the rule of thumb is, I think it's safe to say, use Lolap when you create libraries, packages, and use Webpack when you're building application. So the main benefit of Rollup is much simpler, and it has like lots of feature that is useful for writing a like packages. But Webpack is more like it has lots more features, and it can do lots more things. They have lots more options when you create like application, like Webpack Dev Server and hot reload and so much stuff, right? So I think that's the two main difference. Also, Rollup is, I think, the first one who introduced the tree shaking. So that's the reason I think the library also, it got attention from the library also. It has tree shaking features, and it was very good to bundle the packages. But Webpack can now do that too. But I think Webpack, it feels like it's too much for building like libraries. Rollup is much more simple, I think. The config file is really simple when you look at it. Okay, so is Ember still live? How about new kits like Svelte? Good question. Yeah, I'm not sure Ember. It's at least I never seen a startup using Ember these days, but I think it's still out there. I mean, some applications still using Ember, right? And Svelte, yeah, Svelte is pretty nice one too. And I think everyone really likes Svelte, and I'm not sure how to pronounce this one. I think it's Svelte, right? But it has a good difference between Vue and React, because Svelte is compile time library, right? It requires you to have build system, but because of that, it can do some crazy stuff. So it generates the code, and it's transforming the code when they're doing the build. So I'm looking forward to Svelte's new future as well. I think they're doing great too. And especially they have good docs, like they have their real-time code editor on their website, right? And in the core team, we're talking about we should have this one too in Vue's docs. Yeah, and also we got like Vue 3 got lots of inspiration from Svelte too. So I think Svelte is pretty nice. I think Svelte is currently run by an individual person. So if the team becomes bigger on their side, I think they're going to grow more faster, and I think they're going to draw more attention too. Parser 2 is also very promising. Ah, nice. Parser is, oh yeah, I haven't tried this one, but I think Eduardo was trying this out with his library, and he said it was pretty good. So once it gets more stable, or maybe it's already stable, but if it becomes more famous that we can say it's safe to use in like Vue official stuff, then that could be a choice too, yeah. Too, I was using the Vue CLI build target for my dynamic form library, but I'm getting a lot of errors, but I'm really thinking changing it to look. Ah, okay, I see. Yeah. Vue CLI has this build target as a library, right? I think this Vue CLI target library is for like having Vue component library, I think. And if you want to have like Vue component library, things like Vuetify or Vuefi's UI components, they have more like complex build system. So yeah, that's the hard one though. But if you're getting lots of errors, maybe using Rollup is one thing you could do. And honestly, the build system for JavaScript is really hard, because first time when I wrote Vuex ORM, the toughest part was to build the build system. And I was using TypeScript, and that time Vuex is not using TypeScript, right? And Vue 3 was not out there, so I didn't know how to build Vue library with TypeScript. So I was copying and pasting so much. So maybe one thing you could do is you can copy Vuex or Vuex ORM build system. It's aligned with Vue 3, so we have like the latest build system that we have in Vue community, but it's much simpler than Vue 3. Vue 3 is it has like crazy build system. Everyone lots of script because of that monorepos thing, right? But Vuex and Vue Louder, it has very simple, but yet like latest build system. So I think it's worth checking it out. Okay, do you have experience with micro apps, micro frontends? Perhaps you could recommend some framework like single SPA that would play nicely with Vue plus Vuex. Interesting. Yeah. Well, honestly, I never created micro front-end apps in my own project. No, but I know who does it. Like one of my colleague or one of my friend does it. But all I hear is they're having hard time. Like they're having lots of hard time. So it's like running an app with Vue, React, Angular. Yeah. So I think like I don't think there's like solid framework to do that yet, right? Like it holds everything, but every company are coming up with this crazy build system that enables that micro front end. But I don't think it's like we have good best practice or we are ready for that yet. All I hear is everybody is having really tough time. So I would say just stick to, plain old single page application as long as you can. And when you need like to go do the microphone, and I think you should be prepared for really hard challenging. Okay, so Emily, would there be an additional guidelines for using REST API with VX? Good question. Yeah, this is the hard one, right? Maybe I have a question for you guys. How many of you actually call API inside Vuex? Currently, in my own project, I call a lot. Great. Okay. Okay. So that is required feature, right? So because I'm also Vuex ORM, obviously I'm using Vuex ORM from all my projects, right? So my API call is done inside model, not in store. So I have like same as like Laravel or backend application. I call API inside model, but it's okay to call API in Vuex, of course, because the reason why it's okay is when you think about it, REST API is a global state, right? When you call like get users, you always get the global state from the server side. So it's not all response is not always the same. So it makes sense to call that kind of API from Vuex because once you call the API, then that state has to change everywhere, right? Because when component A call API like say fetch users and component B calls API fetch users another user, those should be same users, and if those are not, then the user has to update on every Vue component. So I think calling API inside store does make sense, but if the code becomes really messy because you're calling API, you have to transform the response and maybe mutate the state. If that becomes really messy, then most of the time you might want to split those REST API function into another function, right? But sometimes it can be tough how to do that. Like, how can we inject Axios instance, right? That kind of things. So I think maybe we should have some kind of a best practice or some guidelines to use that. Okay, the follow-up from Emily is, I call my API outside of the store. It's inside my API function. Yeah, I think that's the way to go at the end. Like when your app becomes complex, and if you think it's worth splitting the API call outside of the store, then I think you should. But most of the time, I think we should start from the simple usage, right? So first of all, I think all of the applications should start without Vuex, like without Vue Louder. You should start from like plain Vue. When you need global state management, then use Vuex. And if you need to call API, same API from multiple component, then I think that should go into store. And if single store becomes so huge that the code becomes really ugly, then I think those APIs should be on its own service, like maybe service class or something like that. So I think it should be on step by step. But I don't think we ever gonna like restrict calling API, like saying calling API in Vuex store is a bad practice or something. I don't think we're ever going to do that. So I think you're in the right path, Emily. Yeah. Also, going back a little bit up. Also, I took a Vuex and Vueauto as inspiration for the library. Great, yeah. So next one. Yeah, thank you too. I think I saw you from Japan too, so hi. Anyway, I do the calls to access client in Vuex action, which try catch, and then mutate the store accordingly. Yeah, that's pretty nice. That's, I think, no problem with doing that, yeah. It is okay to show notification or even model with Vuex action. Well, good question. I always use models and notification with Vuex. So the reason why I do this is it depends on whether the model or notification is global or not. So global notification means, let's say your toaster notification pop-ups from the right bottom of your browser, right? And when users change their routes, like changing if they go somewhere else on the pages and you still want this notification to be there, then I think it really makes sense that this state should be managed in Vuex store because it's global. It's not inside. It's not binded to the component, right? But if the model is just it looks like model and it's not really a model, if you change your pages or if you go somewhere else, then the model should disappear. Maybe it's a good idea that that model should just be a plain view, like, just plain view component. But most of the time, I always use those pop-up stuff. I control them with Vuex. I have like Vuex actions called Vuex dispatch, Windows/open, and something like that. For the models, I really like this library called Vue Sim Model, which is created by Kadashin, who is one of the Vuex maintainer as well. This one is a pretty simple, good model system. And it's not built on top of Vuex, but you can use as if it was like Vuex because opening model is like function call. You call like this model.open, and then you open the model. The hard thing is you have to pass the name of the model, but the name has to be the string. So it's not type safe, but it's pretty like easy to use, and I like this library a lot. There are quite a few Vuex plugin add-ons available of awesome Vuex utilities. Are any of these maintained and encouraged to use? Will they operate once Vuex 5 is out? Well, I think all of the library has to they have to change when Vuex 5 comes because plugin installation process has to change and the internal architecture is totally different, so they have to update their utilities. But I think they can still keep the same API, like public API. Well, in this utilities, I think what I hear a lot is Vuex Pacify. This is created by Dave. And this, I think I hear lots of people using this. And Vuex Pacify is really nice when you want to use Vuex as like configs. Like maybe you want to store application theme to Vuex. Then Vuex Pacify just lets you do that, like vuex.set and add some name to the config and value. So you can use this as a Vuex store as a really simple key value store. And I think it's really suited for something like configuration or very simple Vuex store that doesn't require any like calculation, right? And also one more thing I hear a lot is Vuex persistent store, or was it store persistent state? I think they are similar library on Vuex about persisting, but these are the things that you can save your state to your local storage on this browser and get it back. And interesting is many people using this one to save it to the Electron app, I think, because Electron app has its own database internally, right? So I see lots of those too. But other than that, not much. Not that I'm aware of so much. Yeah, I'm not using so much of Vuex libraries really, but I really like to know. So if you have any like recommendation, I really love to see it. What do you think of using constants for managing Vuex mutation getters action property names? Yeah, personally, I never used constants because constant was introduced more like before, back then. Vuex didn't have module system, right? It was same as Redux. It was a single state management tree, so all actions, getters were all flat. It was on the same level. So it was, I think the constant idea came out because to avoid name crashes. Because in the JavaScript, you can just define multiple, same stuff, right? But because we now have modules, so we have less, we have to worry less about name crash. But it's kind of depends on your preference, I think, because if you have constant, then you can have type safety, right? Because you will get error if you use non-existing name. So rather than using string by importing constant, just as Stephen is currently having this example, if you do this, then when using the action, you will get less errors, I think. And yeah, sometimes you just, misspelled your action and the console log says you don't have this action and you just doesn't know what's happening. And so if you have like large app and you have lots of actions, maybe it's worth thinking about having action name. Especially, I think it's useful if you combine with TypeScript's enum, string enums. I've been using it for a couple of recent projects and it seems to be working really well, but obviously requires maintaining types folder files. Yeah, so that's the downside, right? So you have this strictness, safety, but also you have this managing cost. So the good thing is I think Vuex5 is going to eliminate that need for the constant because all typed anyway. You can only access the store, defined store properties. So but currently, yeah, you have to do that manually, right? Otherwise, maybe would it be cool to have some code generation tools that automatically generate those constant based on current store states? I'm not trying to make that one, but if someone do, maybe that might be cool. What is the benefit of injecting libs like Axios via plugins instead of importing them directly into the store? Okay, this is also same as this is same reason for Vuex injecting Vuex to app instance, but for server-side rendering. So, for example, in Next, you can't import Axios directly from the outside of the component. I mean, you can, but then you have to be really careful with configs. For example, Axios, when you import Axios, that's not the Axios, it's a singleton Axios instance. So if you set like auth token to those Axios instance, that auth token will be shared on the servers. And you don't want that, right? You always want to have this single auth token only for that requested person, and you don't want that auth token to be shared for multiple requests. So in order to overcome this issue, Next is injecting Axios into Vue app, and it's also injecting that into Vuex store. So you can use that Axios instance through this context inside store. So that's the reason why you would want to inject Axios into store instance, so that the Axios doesn't become the global singleton. So if you're using another libraries that is immutable API libraries, then you may not need to inject those instances to the Vuex, so you can just directly import. But for the Axios, I think it's better to do it. You better to inject into the store. Okay, from Emily, I know there are plugins out there for state persistence, but is there any plans for making Vuex in the future? Never thought about it, but maybe it could be a good idea. Like saving Vuex state directly to the index DB, or maybe even a cookie could be. Interesting. Never thought about it, but if we have like lots of feedback, yes. But as long as we have like maintained stable plugins, maybe it's something that plugins should do. I don't know, but this is like always a tough one, right? Like which features should be in the core and which features should be as a plugin is really hard. And I see lots of issues has been dropped from Vuex just because, well, that can be done as a plugin, so please do it as a plugin. But if we have lots of requests for specific feature, and if that's going to help lots of people, I think it's worth thinking to include those in the core. So I think the best thing you could do is, open up issues or tweet that, feature request. And if you get lots of retweets, then I think we can't ignore that. So maybe that's something you can do. Okay. Thank you so much. Whew. Oh, okay. It seems like my time is over. But it was really nice to talk to you all. And oh, wait, let's follow up this last question. For request, I can suggest the promise all settled API and Excel's retry library. That's supposed. Oh yeah. That's a pretty nice one too. Great. Okay, so I think all of you know my Twitter account, and also I'm on the Discord too. So if you have any questions, please let me know. And I'll be excited to announce Vuex 5 officially, and I think we can improve Vuex really, really well. So stay tuned, everyone, and also have fun with the rest of the event. And we have a big announcement from Evan too, so don't miss that one too. And see you around. And I think we're gonna see you. I'll be in this event all day. So yeah, see you guys. Have fun.